The alarms screamed through the mining colony like wounded animals. Taman looked up from his workbench, his hands still covered in grease from the salvage equipment he had been repairing. The lights flickered red, then died completely. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in a sickly yellow glow. He knew what this meant. They all knew. The Vryn had come. Taman stood slowly, wiping his hands on a rag. Around him, other workers were running, screaming, grabbing whatever they could carry. Some ran toward the escape pods. Others just ran with no plan at all. Taman did neither. He walked calmly to a locker in the corner of his workshop and pulled out a small bag. Inside were a few clothes, some ration bars, and a picture he never looked at anymore. The building shook. Explosions boomed somewhere above. Dust fell from the ceiling like snow. A woman burst through the door, her uniform marking her as medical staff. Her name was Minji, and Taman had seen her around the colony. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and kind eyes that were now wide with terror. "We have to go," she shouted at him. "They're already inside the main complex." Taman nodded and followed her out into the corridor. Other humans were running past them, some injured, some helping others. The sounds of weapons fire echoed from somewhere close, too close. They made it to the central hub where a crowd had gathered. A large man named Doyen, one of the senior miners, was trying to organize people. His face was covered in rock dust and sweat. "Everyone to the east tunnels," Doyen yelled. "We can reach the emergency shelters if we—" The wall exploded inward. Chunks of metal and concrete flew through the air. People screamed and scattered. Through the smoke and dust, figures emerged. They were tall, nearly 7 feet, with gray skin that looked like stone. Their eyes glowed a dull orange. The Vryn wore armor that seemed to absorb light, making them look like walking shadows. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. One of them raised its gun and fired. A blue bolt of light hit a running man in the back. He fell and didn't move. "Down!" Doyen shouted, pulling people behind whatever cover they could find. But there was nowhere to go. More Vryn poured in through the broken wall. They moved with purpose, not rushing, taking their time. They knew the humans had nowhere to run. Taman found himself pressed against a pillar with Minji beside him. She was shaking, her breathing fast and shallow. He could see others hiding nearby. A woman named Hana, who worked in communications, was crouched behind an overturned table. Her glasses were cracked and blood ran from a cut on her forehead. The Vryn began stunning people with their weapons. The humans fell like puppets with cut strings. In minutes it was over. Taman didn't fight. Neither did most of the others. What could they do against trained soldiers with advanced weapons? The Vryn moved through the crowd, checking bodies, securing prisoners. One of them grabbed Taman by the arm and dragged him to his feet. The alien looked at him with those glowing eyes, then tossed him toward a growing group of captured humans. Taman landed hard but didn't cry out. He just stood and joined the others. They were herded like animals through the broken colony. Taman counted as they walked. 47 humans. That was all that remained of a colony that had housed 200 people. The rest were dead or had managed to escape. He hoped some had escaped. The Vryn ship waited outside, a massive dark thing that looked like it had been carved from black glass. A ramp extended from its belly, and the prisoners were forced inside. The interior was cold and smelled like metal and something else, something alien and unpleasant. They were pushed into holding cells, 3 or 4 people to each cage. Taman ended up with Minji, Doyun, and Hana. The cell was small, barely 10 feet across, with walls made of some material that felt warm to the touch. There were no beds, just a bare floor and a single light panel in the ceiling. As the door sealed shut, Minji finally broke down. She sat in the corner and cried quietly, her shoulders shaking. Hana tried to comfort her, but she looked ready to cry herself. Doyun punched the wall, then swore when it didn't even leave a mark. "This can't be happening," he muttered. "This can't be real," but it was real. Taman sat down against the wall and closed his eyes. He had hoped this part of his life was over. He had hoped he could just be a simple salvage worker, fixing broken machines on a forgotten colony at the edge of space. He had hoped no one would ever find him. That hope had died today. Hours passed. The ship shuddered and began to move. They were leaving the colony behind, heading somewhere unknown. Other prisoners cried out from their cells, calling for help that wouldn't come. Minji eventually stopped crying and looked at Taman. Even in her fear, she had noticed something. "You're not scared," she said quietly. Taman opened his eyes and looked at her. I am, he said, just in a different way. You military? Doyen asked, studying him with new interest. Taman didn't answer right away. He knew if he said yes, they would ask more questions. Questions he didn't want to answer. He finally said. Long time ago, Minji moved closer to him. In the harsh light, she could see scars on his neck, disappearing under his collar. Not normal scars. These were too precise, too geometric. What are those? She asked, pointing. Taman pulled his collar higher. Old injuries, but Minji was a medic. She knew injuries, and those weren't from accidents or normal combat. Those were surgical scars, implant scars. Before she could ask more, a Vryn guard appeared outside their cell. It stared at them with those glowing eyes, then moved on. But Taman noticed something. The guard had hesitated. Just for a second, it had looked at him differently than the others. The ship hummed around them as it traveled through space. Taman knew where they were going. Everyone knew. The Vryn were slavers. They would be taken to some market station and sold to whoever would pay. They would work until they died, in mines or factories or worse places. That was the fate waiting for them. Doyen sat down heavily. We're dead, he said. Maybe not today, but we're dead. Hana started to cry again, but Taman said nothing. He just sat there, his eyes distant, thinking about things the others couldn't imagine, thinking about who he used to be, about what he used to do, about the name he thought he had left behind forever. Minji watched him in the dim light and felt a strange chill. This quiet man with his old scars and calm eyes. There was something about him. Something hidden and dangerous. She didn't know yet how right she was. Outside their cell, the Vryn ship continued its journey into darkness, carrying 47 humans to slavery and one man to a destiny he had tried to escape. The Reaper was aboard, and he didn't even know he had been awakened yet. The ship called Devourer's Pride cut through space like a knife through water. Inside, the captured humans tried to sleep, tried to forget where they were going. Most couldn't. The cells were too cold, the floor too hard, and the future too dark. Taman didn't sleep either, but not because of fear. He was calculating, counting, planning, old habits coming back like old friends he didn't want to see. On the third day, the Vryn began processing them. A group of guards came through the holding area, dragging prisoners out one by one. They took them to another room where machines scanned their bodies, recording data. When each human was returned to their cell, they looked even more defeated than before. Being scanned like products, like things to be sold, broke something inside them. When they came for Taman, he stood without resistance. Two guards gripped his arms and led him down a long corridor. The walls pulsed with a faint blue light. Other Vryn passed by, not even looking at him. To them, he was nothing, just another slave. They brought him to a large room filled with scanning equipment. A Vryn technician gestured to a platform in the center. Taman stepped onto it. Lights began moving around him, up and down, reading every part of his body. The technician watched its screen, looking bored. Then its expression changed. Its eyes widened. It looked at Taman, then back at the screen, then at Taman again. It started making sounds, clicking and whistling. The guards straightened, suddenly alert. More Vryn rushed into the room. One of them, wearing different armor that marked it as an officer, pushed forward and stared at the screen. Its skin went a shade paler. Impossible, it said in broken human language. This cannot be. The officer turned to look at Taman with something that might have been fear. Bring him to the captain. Now. The guards grabbed Taman harder this time, their weapons ready. They dragged him through more corridors, moving faster. Other Vryn stopped to watch them pass, and Taman could feel their stares. They reached the bridge, a vast room with windows showing the stars outside. At the center stood the largest Vryn Taman had seen yet. This had to be Captain Kelvor. Its armor was decorated with marks that probably meant victories or kills. Put him there, Kelvor ordered, pointing to a spot in front of its command chair. The guards threw Taman down. He landed on his knees but didn't make a sound. Kelvor walked around him slowly, studying him like a scientist studies a strange bug. Your scan triggered alarms across every system we have, Kelvor said. Its human language was better than the others. Your biometric data is sealed under Galactic Council Black Protocol. Do you know what that means? Taman said nothing. It means you are not just a human. You are a threat. A weapon. Kelvor leaned closer. I accessed your records. Very difficult. Very expensive. But I needed to know who was on my ship. The captain pulled up a holographic display. Information scrolled past in alien text, but there were pictures. Pictures of destroyed ships. Pictures of dead aliens. Pictures of fire and death. Your name is not Taman, Kelvor said. That is just something you call yourself now. Your real name. Your real designation. The captain's voice dropped lower. Agent 07? Call sign the Reaper. The bridge went silent. Every Vryn stopped what they were doing. Some of them stepped back. Kelvor continued. During the first contact war, you destroyed 3 of our allied fleets. 17,000 soldiers died by your hand. You were humanity's answer to us. Their perfect killer. The one soldier who made entire armies afraid. Taman finally looked up at the captain. His eyes were cold and empty. That was a long time ago, he said quietly. Not long enough. Kelvor roared, suddenly angry. The war ended only 15 years ago. 15 years you have been hiding, pretending to be nobody. But you cannot hide from what you are. I'm not that person anymore. Liar! Kelvor smashed a fist against its chair. Once a killer, always a killer. Once a weapon, always a weapon. You think you can have peace? You think you can forget? Taman stood slowly. The guards raised their weapons, but he made no aggressive move. He just stood there looking tired. I left that life, Taman said. I just wanted to be alone. To fix machines and be forgotten. Kelvor laughed, a horrible sound like rocks grinding together. And now you are here, on my ship, my prize. The captain walked back to its chair and sat down. Do you know how much you are worth? The Reaper, captured. Alive. I could sell you to a dozen different empires. They would pay fortunes just to study you. To break you. To learn your secrets. Or you could let us go, Taman said. The Vryn on the bridge laughed at that. Even Kelvor seemed amused. Let you go? Let the most dangerous human alive go free? The captain shook its head. No, but I will not take chances with you either. Take him back to the cells. Triple security. I want him drugged, chained, and watched every moment. If he even looks like he might try something, kill him. His corpse is still worth money. The guards grabbed Taman again and dragged him away. As they left the bridge, he heard Kelvor giving more orders. Increase speed. I want to reach Terminus Station in 3 days. And send word ahead. Tell them we have something special to sell. They brought Taman back to his cell, but not before stopping at a medical bay. A Vryn doctor injected him with something that made his arms and legs feel heavy. They put metal bands around his wrists and ankles, bands that hummed with energy. When they finally threw him back into the cell with the others, Minji rushed to his side. What happened? What did they do to you? Taman sat down slowly, the drugs making everything fuzzy. They know who I am? Who are you? Doyen asked, moving closer. Taman closed his eyes. He had kept this secret for so long. 15 years of hiding, of being nobody. Now it was over. I was a soldier, he said. In the war. Against the aliens. I did things. Bad things. Necessary things. They called me the Reaper. Hana made a small sound. Even through her cracked glasses, her eyes went wide. I've heard that name, she whispered. Stories, legends, they said the Reaper could take down a whole battalion alone. That aliens were so afraid of him they would surrender if they even thought he was nearby. Just stories, Taman said. Are they? Doyen stared at him. Is it true? Were you really him? Taman opened his eyes and looked at each of them. Yes, he said simply. Minji sat back, processing this. The quiet man who fixed salvage equipment. The one who never talked about his past. He was the most feared soldier humanity had ever created. Why didn't you tell us? She asked. Because I wanted to forget. I wanted that person to die. Taman looked down at his chained hands. I was done killing, but now they know, Hana said. What will they do? Sell me, use me. It doesn't matter. Taman leaned his head back against the wall. I'm sorry. If I hadn't been on that colony, maybe the Vryn wouldn't have attacked. Maybe you all would be safe. Doyen shook his head. They were coming anyway. For the mining resources, you didn't bring this on us. They sat in silence for a while. The ship hummed around them, carrying them closer to their fate. Then Taman began tapping his fingers on the floor. Not randomly. In a pattern. A rhythm, Minji noticed first. What are you doing? Talking, Taman said. To who? The others. In the other cells, he kept tapping. After a moment, there was an answer. Taps from the cell next to theirs. Then more taps from other cells. A conversation in code Doyen understood then. You're planning something. Taman smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just woken up hungry. I tried to be done with killing, he said softly, but they wouldn't let me rest. They came for us. They took us. They want to sell us like animals. He looked at his cellmates with eyes that had gone cold and hard. I was the Reaper once. Maybe it's time to remember how. 3 days. That was how long they had before reaching Terminus Station. 3 days before being sold to whoever wanted to own them. 3 days before any hope of escape died forever. But Taman only needed one. The drugs they had given him were strong, meant to keep him weak and slow. For a normal human, they would have worked. But Taman's body wasn't entirely normal anymore. The implants beneath his skin, the modifications they had made to him during the war, they were still there, still working. Slowly, quietly, his system began breaking down the drugs. He kept tapping messages to the other cells, simple codes. Easy to learn. The other prisoners caught on quickly. Fear made people smart. Minji watched him work through the brain fog of the sedatives. She had checked his pulse while pretending to help him sit up. It was too slow. Dangerously slow. But his eyes stayed focused. You should be unconscious, she whispered. I know, Taman replied softly. Don't tell the guards. On the second day, opportunity came from an unexpected place. A young Vryn guard, probably new to the job, was making rounds. It stopped at each cell, checking the prisoners. When it reached their cell, it stared at the humans with those glowing orange eyes. Then it made a mistake. It got too close to the energy field that served as their door. Hana had been pretending to be sicker than she was, moaning and crying near the front of the cell. The guard leaned in to look at her. That was when Hana struck. She had been hiding a piece of metal, a small thing she had found on the floor days ago. She jammed it into the control panel next to the door. Sparks flew. The energy field flickered. The guard stumbled back, surprised, reaching for its weapon. But Doyen was faster. The big miner grabbed the guard's arm through the weakened field and pulled. Hard. The Vryn's head smashed against the field with a crackling sound. It fell unconscious. For a moment, everyone froze. Then Taman moved. Despite the chains and the drugs, he lurched forward and grabbed the guard's weapon. His fingers found the controls like they had never forgotten. The gun hummed to life in his hands. Get back, he told the others. He aimed at the control panel and fired. The energy field died completely. They were free, or at least out of their cell. Taman dragged the unconscious guard inside and stripped it of its equipment. A weapon, a communicator, and most importantly, access codes on a small device. We need to move fast, Taman said, his voice stronger now. The adrenaline was burning through the drugs. They'll know something is wrong soon. What's the plan? Doyen asked, picking up a piece of the guard's armor. We can't fight our way off the ship. There are too many of them. Taman checked the weapon, making sure it was fully charged. But we can make the ship too dangerous to keep flying. Force them to land somewhere, anywhere. Then we run. How do we do that? Hana asked. Taman looked at her. You worked in communications. Can you sabotage their systems? I can try. If I can get to their network hub. Good. He turned to Minji. Medical bay. We need to free anyone there and get supplies. And me? Doyen asked. Engine room. If we can damage the engines without destroying the ship, they'll have to stop. Taman used the access codes to open the other cells. 43 more humans stumbled out, weak and scared. Many were injured. All were hungry. A man named Tae-Woo, who had been an engineer, stepped forward. If we're doing this, we need to do it right. Hit them everywhere at once. Confusion is our friend, Taman nodded. He quickly organized the prisoners into groups. Some would go with Hana to sabotage communications, others with Minji to medical. The strongest would go with Doyen to engineering. What about you? Minji asked Taman. I'm going hunting. He could see the question in her eyes. Hunting for what? But she didn't ask. She knew the answer. He was going hunting for Vryn. They split up, moving through the ship's corridors as quietly as possible. Taman had studied the layout during those long hours in the cell, memorizing everything he could from the brief glimpses he had seen. The ship was huge, but it was also arrogant. The Vryn didn't expect prisoners to escape. Their security was focused outward, not inward. That was their first mistake. Taman moved like a ghost, keeping to the shadows. His chains were still on, but he had found the locking mechanism. It took him 30 seconds to disable them. They fell away and he felt stronger immediately. He reached a security station where 2 guards monitored the cameras. They didn't see him coming. The first guard died without making a sound. Taemin's hands remembered the techniques, the pressure points, the exact amount of force needed. The second guard turned, started to shout, but Taemin fired the stolen weapon. The blue bolt caught the Vryn in the chest. Taemin checked the monitors. He could see Hana's group reaching the communications hub. Doyen's team was almost to engineering. So far, no alarms. He destroyed the security station with several shots, making sure no one else could use these cameras. Then he moved on. In the communications hub, Hana worked frantically. Her fingers flew over the alien controls. The interface was different from human systems, but the basic principles were the same. Find the main data streams. Identify the critical processes. Then break them. How much longer? Taewoo asked, standing guard by the door. 2 minutes, Hana said, sweat running down her face. A Vryn rounded the corner. Taewoo swung a piece of pipe he had found. It connected with the alien's head with a satisfying crack. The Vryn went down. 1 minute, Hana said. She initiated a cascade failure in their communication systems. Every message would be scrambled. Every sensor would report false data. The Vryn would be deaf and blind. Done, let's go. In the medical bay, Minji found 3 more prisoners being held for experimentation. They were weak, barely conscious. Her group got them out and began gathering supplies. Bandages, medicines, anything useful. A Vryn doctor entered and froze at the sight of humans running free. It reached for an alarm. Minji threw a metal tray. It hit the doctor in the face. The alien stumbled back and 2 other prisoners grabbed it, holding it down. No killing, Minji said firmly. Just tie it up. They bound the doctor and left it in a storage closet. In the engine room, Doyen and his team faced their biggest challenge. The engines were massive, complex machines that filled an entire section of the ship, and they were guarded by 6 Vryn soldiers. We can't fight 6 of them, one of the prisoners whispered. We don't have to fight them, Doyen said. We just need them to leave. He picked up a wrench and threw it at a control panel across the room. It smashed through the display with a loud crash. The guards spun around, weapons ready. They moved to investigate. Doyen's team slipped past them and got to work on the engines. They didn't need to understand alien technology. They just needed to break things. Cut wires, smash components, create problems. The engines started making bad sounds. Grinding, whining, coughing. The guards realized too late what was happening. They turned back, but Doyen's team was already running. 1 guard fired, hitting a prisoner in the leg. The man screamed and fell. Doyen dragged him up and they fled, leaving the engines damaged and failing. Alarms finally started blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed. Vryn soldiers poured into the corridors, but it was too late. The damage was done. On the bridge, Captain Kelvor stared at the reports flooding in. Communications down, engines failing, prisoners loose, and worst of all, 7 guards dead. How? Kelvor roared. How did this happen? An officer pointed to a screen showing security footage from before the cameras were destroyed. It showed a single human moving through the corridors with deadly precision. The Reaper, the officer said quietly. Kelvor felt something it had not felt in many years. Fear. Find him. Kill him. Kill all of them. I don't care about profits anymore. I want them dead. Taemin heard the announcement echoing through the ship. The Vryn were coming with everything they had. Good. That was what he wanted. While they hunted him, the others could regroup. He had made his way to the armory and stolen more weapons. His body was fully awake now. The last of the drugs burned away by adrenaline and old instincts. A squad of 5 Vryn rounded a corner ahead of him. They saw him and opened fire. Taemin moved. The old training took over completely. He rolled, fired, rolled again. His shots were perfect. 3 Vryn down in seconds, the other 2 fell back, their confidence shattered. Taemin advanced, his face expressionless. To the Vryn, he looked like death itself walking toward them. They ran. He let them go. Fear was a weapon too. Through the ship's failing systems, Taemin made his way back to the meeting point they had agreed on. One by one, the teams arrived. Some were injured. 2 hadn't made it back at all, but they had done it. They had turned the ship into chaos. Minji looked at Taemin, at the weapons he carried, at the cold look in his eyes. You really were the Reaper, she said softly. Yes, he replied. and now they're going to remember why that name scared them. The ship was dying. Warning lights flashed in every corridor. Strange sounds echoed through the walls as systems failed one after another. Smoke leaked from damaged panels. The artificial gravity flickered, making everyone stumble. Taman gathered the freed prisoners in a cargo bay near the ship's center. It was defensible, with only 2 entrances and plenty of cover behind stacked containers. 41 humans remained alive. 6 had died in the escape attempt. "Listen to me," Taman said, his voice carrying authority that made everyone pay attention. "The Vryn will come for us. They have more soldiers, better weapons, and they know this ship better than we do. But we have something they don't." "What's that?" someone asked. "Desperation. And me." Taman checked his weapons. "I'm going to teach you how to fight. Not like soldiers. We don't have time for that. I'm going to teach you how to survive." He split them into 2 groups. One would defend each entrance. Doyen led one group, Tewu the other. Minji set up a medical station in the center of the bay where she could reach anyone who got hurt. Hana worked on a computer terminal, trying to access what remained of the ship's systems. "Can you see where they are?" Taman asked her. "Some cameras still work. I count maybe 30 Vryn moving this way. They're being careful now. You scared them." "Good. Scared enemies make mistakes." Taman positioned his people behind the cargo containers, showing them how to take cover, how to aim, when to fire, and when to wait. Most had never held a weapon before. Their hands shook, but fear was a good teacher. The first attack came 20 minutes later. A group of Vryn tried to rush through the east entrance. They expected weak, frightened prisoners. Instead, they met organized resistance. The humans opened fire from behind cover. Blue energy bolts flew in both directions. 2 prisoners were hit, screaming as they fell. But 3 Vryn died and the rest retreated. "Hold your position," Taman shouted. "Don't chase them." Minji dragged the wounded to her medical station. One was beyond help, dead before she could even try. The other had a burn across his shoulder. She did what she could with the limited supplies. The Vryn tried the west entrance next. This time they used grenades, throwing them ahead to flush out the defenders. "Down," Tewu yelled. Explosions rocked the cargo bay. Containers were blown apart, scattering their contents. One prisoner didn't get down fast enough and was caught by shrapnel, but the humans adapted. They grabbed the scattered cargo, metal pieces, and tools and threw them back at the Vryn. It wasn't much, but it slowed them down. Taman moved between both groups, firing with calm precision. Every shot he took hit something. He was like a machine, never hesitating, never missing. The other prisoners watched him and found their own courage growing. The battle lasted 2 hours. Wave after wave of Vryn tried to break through. Bodies piled up at both entrances, both human and alien. The air filled with smoke and the smell of burnt flesh. Captain Kelvor watched from the bridge, growing more furious with each failed attack. "Seal the cargo bay," it ordered. "Cut off their air. We will suffocate them." But when the engineering team tried to seal the environmental controls, they found the systems damaged beyond quick repair. The prisoners' sabotage was thorough. "Then vent that section to space," Kelvor snarled. "Open the outer doors. Blow them all out. Captain, that will damage the ship further. We barely have enough power to maintain life support as it is." Kelvor slammed its fist down. "I don't care, do it." On the bridge's main screen, Kelvor pulled up the security feed from the cargo bay. It watched the human called the Reaper moving among his people, organizing, encouraging, killing. This one human had turned its certain victory into a nightmare. "You should have died in the war," Kelvor muttered. In the cargo bay, Hana suddenly gasped. "They're opening the outer doors. They're going to vent us to space." Panic rippled through the prisoners. Being shot was one thing. Being sucked into the void of space was another, but Taman was already moving. "Tewu, help me!" Everyone else, secure yourselves to something. Now. He ran to the nearest wall panel and ripped it open, exposing wires and circuits. Tewu joined him, and together they worked frantically. "What are we doing?" Tewu asked. "Emergency override. Every cargo bay has one, in case of accidental venting." Taman's fingers flew over the alien controls. "We just need to find it before—" A massive grinding sound echoed through the ship. The outer doors were opening. Air began rushing past them, pulled toward the growing gap in the hull. Containers started sliding. People screamed, holding on to whatever they could grab. "Found it." Taman hit a control. Emergency shields slammed down, separating the cargo bay from the outer doors. The air stopped rushing. The shields held. Everyone breathed again. On the bridge, Kelvor roared in frustration. Nothing worked. Every plan failed. This was supposed to be simple. Capture humans, sell humans, profit. Instead, it was turning into the worst disaster of its career. Captain, an officer said quietly, perhaps we should negotiate. Negotiate? With slaves? They are not acting like slaves. And that one, the Reaper, he is too dangerous. Maybe we offer them escape pods. Let them go. Kelvor turned to look at its crew. It saw fear in their eyes. Fear of one human and a group of desperate prisoners. This could not stand. Bring me my armor, Kelvor said. And gather the elite guards. I will deal with this myself. In the cargo bay, the prisoners were exhausted. They had been fighting for hours. Ammunition was running low. Medical supplies were gone. Several were badly wounded. All were at their limit. Minji sat down next to Taemin, her hands shaking from adrenaline and fatigue. We can't keep this up, she said softly. We're going to lose. Taemin reloaded his weapon for what felt like the 100th time. Maybe. You don't sound worried. I am. But worry doesn't help. He looked at her. We're still alive. That's more than I expected. Is this what the war was like for you? Taemin was quiet for a moment. Every day. For 3 years. Fighting, surviving, watching people die. I thought I was done with it. I'm sorry you have to do this again, he shook his head. I'm not. Not anymore. They took our freedom. They were going to take our lives. Someone had to fight back. It might as well be me. Doyun came over, his face covered in soot. Movement at both entrances. Something big is coming. Taemin stood and moved to where he could see. Through the smoke and damaged lights, shapes appeared. Large Vryn in heavy armor, carrying weapons that hummed with power. And in the center, the biggest one of all. The captain, Hana said, checking her terminal. That's Kelvor. The Vryn stopped just outside the cargo bay. Kelvor's voice boomed through a speaker. Reaper. I know you can hear me. Taemin stepped forward where the captain could see him. I hear you. You have fought well. Better than I expected. You have killed many of my soldiers. Cost me much money. Kelvor's glowing eyes fixed on Taemin. I offer you a deal. You surrender yourself to me. Come quietly, and I will let the others live. I will put them in escape pods and release them near a colony. The prisoners looked at each other, then at Taemin. He smiled, but it was a cold smile. You're lying. You'll kill them as soon as I surrender, perhaps, but this is their only chance. If you refuse, I will bring every remaining soldier. We will storm this bay with everything we have. Some of us will die, yes, but all of you will die. That is certain. Taemin looked back at the people behind him. These ordinary humans who had fought like warriors, who had trusted him, who had survived this far against impossible odds. He thought about what his life had been. Soldier, weapon, killer. He had tried to leave it behind, but it had found him anyway. Maybe this was always how it was supposed to end. Taemin, no, Minji said, understanding what he was thinking. We fight together or not at all. She's right, Doyun added. You don't get to sacrifice yourself for us. We've come this far, Taewu said. Let's finish it together. Taemin felt something he hadn't felt in years. Pride, not in himself, but in these people. These brave, stubborn humans who refused to give up. He turned back to Kelvor. Here's my counteroffer. You give us an escape ship, supplies, and safe passage. And I won't kill you. Kelvor laughed. You think you can kill me? I am wearing armor that can withstand plasma fire. I have elite guards. You are one tired human with barely any ammunition. I've beaten worse odds. The war is over, Reaper. Your legends mean nothing now. Taemin raised his weapon. Then come find out if the legends were true. The final battle began with silence. Captain Kelvor and its elite guards stood at the cargo bay entrances waiting. Taemin and the prisoners stood behind their barricades, weapons ready. For a moment, neither side moved. Then Kelvor roared and charged. The elite guards poured in from both sides, their heavy armor making them look like walking tanks. They fired as they moved, blue bolts lighting up the cargo bay like lightning. The prisoners returned fire. Most of their shots bounced off the thick armor, but they aimed for weak points, for joints and visors, just like Taemin had taught them. One guard went down, its knee joint shattered. Another stumbled back with a cracked visor, but they kept coming. Taemin moved through the chaos with deadly purpose. He wasn't fighting like the others. He was hunting. Each movement was precise, calculated. He shot at the same spot on each guard's armor until it cracked, then finished them. 2 guards cornered him behind a container. They thought they had him trapped. They were wrong. Taman dropped his gun and pulled something from his belt, a piece of sharp metal he had prepared earlier. As the first guard reached for him, he jammed the metal into the armor's neck joint. The guard fell, making horrible sounds. The second guard swung at him with its weapon. Taman dodged and grabbed the guard's arm, using its own momentum to throw it into a wall. Before it could recover, he picked up his gun and fired point blank into its visor. Across the bay, Doyen was fighting hand-to-hand with a guard that had lost its weapon. The big miner was strong, but the Vryn was stronger. It lifted him and threw him against a container. "Doyen!" Minji screamed, but Doyen got back up, blood running from his head. He grabbed a piece of broken pipe and swung with everything he had. The pipe connected with the guard's head hard enough to dent the armor. The guard staggered and other prisoners swarmed it, dragging it down. Taewoo was directing fire from his position, trying to coordinate the defense, but there were too many elite guards. They were being overwhelmed. "Fall back." Taewoo shouted, "Tighter formation!" The prisoners retreated to the center of the bay, forming a circle around the wounded. They were running out of room and options. Captain Kelvor waded through the battle like a giant. Its armor was thicker than the others, decorated with kill marks. It carried a massive weapon that fired explosive rounds. It aimed at the huddled prisoners and fired. The explosion threw humans through the air. 3 died instantly. 5 more were wounded, screaming in pain. Kelvor reloaded, preparing to fire again. Then Taman was there. He had climbed on top of a container and jumped, landing on the captain's back. Kelvor roared and tried to shake him off, but Taman held on. He jammed his weapon against the armor's back where the power cell was housed and fired repeatedly. Sparks flew. The armor started smoking. Kelvor spun and slammed backward into a wall, trying to crush Taman. The impact drove the air from Taman's lungs, but he didn't let go. He kept firing into the same spot. Finally, the armor's power cell exploded. Both of them were thrown across the bay. Taman hit the ground hard and didn't move. Kelvor's armor was cracked and smoking, but the captain was still alive. It pulled itself up, yanking off the damaged chest plate. "You should have stayed hidden," Kelvor snarled, limping toward where Taman lay. "You should have stayed dead." The captain raised its weapon to finish him. A shot rang out. Kelvor looked down in surprise. A hole had appeared in its side, leaking dark blood. It turned to see Minji holding a gun with shaking hands. She fired again. And again other prisoners joined in. A dozen weapons firing at once. Kelvor's armor was damaged. Without it fully functioning, the shots got through. The mighty captain fell to its knees, then toppled forward. The elite guards saw their leader fall and their resolve broke. Some tried to keep fighting, others ran. The prisoners, despite their exhaustion and wounds, pressed the attack. They had come too far to stop now. 15 minutes later, it was over. The cargo bay was silent except for the groans of the wounded and the sparking of damaged equipment. Bodies lay everywhere, human and Vryn both. The survivors could barely stand. Minji crawled to where Taman lay. He was breathing, but barely. Blood covered his side. "Don't you die on us," she said, her medical training taking over despite her exhaustion. Not after all this. She worked on him with what little supplies remained. Slowly, carefully, Hana limped over to help. Doyen was checking the bay's entrances. "No more guards coming. I think we got them all. Or the rest are too scared to fight." "The ship," Taewoo said suddenly. "With the captain dead, with most of the crew gone, who's flying it?" Hana pulled up her terminal. "Basic automated systems, but they're failing." "We're drifting. Can we control it?" Doyen asked. "Maybe. If we can get to the bridge." They organized a team to move through the ship. It was dangerous. There might be more Vryn hiding, but they had no choice. What they found surprised them. The remaining Vryn crew had abandoned their posts. Some were hiding. Others had fled to escape pods. The bridge was empty. Hana sat at the main controls, studying the alien interface. "I can read some of this. The engines are barely working, but we have enough power to limp to the nearest system. There's a human colony there, 3 days away. Can we make it 3 days?" Doyen asked. "If nothing else breaks." They sent people to secure the rest of the ship to find any remaining Vryn and lock them up. They found 15 crew members hiding in various places. None wanted to fight anymore. In the cargo bay, Taman woke up to find Minji watching over him. "How bad?" he asked, his voice weak. Bad enough. Broken ribs, internal bleeding. I've done what I can, but you need real medical care. Did we win? She smiled, tears in her eyes. Yes, we won. Taman closed his eyes again. Good. Over the next 3 days, the damaged ship crawled through space. The prisoners took turns manning the controls, following Hana's instructions. They treated the wounded. They mourned the dead. 22 humans had survived out of the original 47. Each one was a victory. On the morning of the 3rd day, they detected something. Ships. Human ships. Hana opened a communication channel. This is Hana, broadcasting on all frequencies. We are survivors of the colony raid at Beta Station. We've captured a Vryn slave ship and need assistance. Static. Then a response. This is UES patrol ship Defiance. We copy your message. What is your status? We have wounded. We need medical care and supplies. And we need to warn you. The Vryn Empire is launching attacks on human colonies. They're taking slaves. Our colony was just the first. A long pause. Say again. The Vryn are attacking colonies? Yes, multiple raids. Our colony was hit 6 days ago. They've taken hundreds, maybe thousands of humans. The patrol ship's voice became urgent. Hold your position. We're sending ships to escort you to the colony, and we're relaying your information to Fleet Command. When the patrol ships arrived, they found the damaged Vryn vessel and its unlikely crew. Medical teams rushed aboard. They treated Taman and the other wounded, amazed that any had survived. A naval officer boarded and asked to speak to whoever was in charge. They brought him to the cargo bay where Taman sat, bandaged but conscious. You led these people? The officer asked. We all led each other, Taman replied. We just wanted to survive. According to the ship's logs, you killed Captain Kelvor and over 40 Vryn soldiers, with untrained civilians. The officer looked at him with new interest. Who are you? Before Taman could answer, Minji stepped forward. His name is Taman. He was a salvage worker on our colony, and he saved all of us. The officer didn't look convinced, but he let it go. Well, whatever his story, we're grateful. We've been hearing reports of Vryn attacks for weeks, but couldn't confirm them. Your information might save lives. Over the next few days, word spread. The Vryn were indeed launching a new campaign, attacking undefended human colonies and stations, taking slaves, testing humanity's resolve. The colonies began calling for help, for protection, for action. Taman and the survivors were taken to a military station for debriefing. That's when everything changed. During the interview, a senior military officer recognized Taman. Actually recognized him. I served with you, the officer said quietly. During the war, 8th Fleet, you saved my ship. Taman's secret was out. Within hours, military intelligence arrived. They wanted to know everything. Where had he been? Why had he disappeared? Did he know about the Vryn attacks? Taman told them the truth. He had left after the war, unable to continue being a soldier. He had wanted peace, but now he understood something. There would be no peace. Not while empires like the Vryn thought they could take whatever they wanted. Not while humans were being enslaved. He sat in the debriefing room, looking at the officers gathered around him. The Vryn picked the wrong time to start this, he said quietly. They think humanity got soft, that we forgot how to fight. They're wrong. He stood up, his wound still hurting, but his purpose clear. I'm done hiding. I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not. If they want a war, we'll give them one. The senior officer nodded slowly. What do you need? Ships, soldiers, and access to the Vryn communication networks. Why the communications? Taman's expression was cold and hard. Because I'm going to send them a message. One they'll never forget. 3 hours later, the message went out. Across every Vryn channel, every frequency they used. It broadcast to their military, their government,